This video contains content that may disturb you and challenge your perception of reality. Ensure you're in a safe space before you continue. Hello and welcome to Charlie Ghostlight. I'm Charlie. Tonight, we dive deep into the shadows of the unexplained, where strange lights hover over city skylines, families vanish into a web of alien secrets, and children wake to terrifying visitors no one else can see. These aren't just tales to scare you around a campfire. They're real accounts, backed by witnesses and evidence that refuse to be ignored. Case 1. The Manhattan Abduction, 1989. It was the early morning of November the 30th, 1989. The city never sleeps, but on this particular night, something unexplainable crept through the cold New York air. Somewhere in Lower Manhattan, in an ordinary apartment complex, a woman named Linda Napolitano awoke to what she described as an overwhelming presence in her room. According to Linda, the first thing she noticed was a blinding white-blue light flooding her bedroom. Then, 3 figures appeared at the foot of her bed. Not people, not shadows, something else. She says they were small, grey beings with large black eyes. You know the type. The classic grey alien archetype, only this time, they weren't a story in a sci-fi book. They were in her apartment. Linda didn't scream. She couldn't. Her body was paralyzed, and a strange sense of calm washed over her. The kind that makes you question if you're awake or dreaming. But she insists she was fully conscious as these beings escorted her toward the window, the 12-story window. That's when things get unreal. According to Linda, she was lifted out of her window by a beam of light. She floated outside high above the city streets, right next to 3 non-human entities. No wires, no sound, just silence and light. They pulled her toward a massive hovering craft. Now, let's pause right there. This sounds like a typical alien abduction story, right? Dreamlike, isolated, and unprovable. Except this one has witnesses. Lots of them. Over 20 people reported seeing something that night. One woman, standing on the Brooklyn Bridge, said she saw people floating in the air. Others claimed they witnessed a gigantic UFO above the Manhattan skyline. There were even reports of cars stalling mysteriously near the bridge. Electromagnetic interference, as some would later suggest. These weren't just anonymous internet rumors. The sightings were gathered and documented by Bud Hopkins, a respected figure in UFO research at the time. He didn't just take Linda's word for it. He cross-referenced sketches from witnesses, some of whom didn't even know each other. What he found was disturbing. Similar images, all depicting the same scene. A beam of light, figures in the sky, a woman being taken. Hopkins became obsessed with the case. He worked with Linda for years, using hypnosis to help her recall more details of the experience. What surfaced during those sessions was chilling. Descriptions of cold metallic rooms, medical procedures, and a sense that these beings weren't just visiting, they were experimenting. But here's where it gets even stranger. 2 of the witnesses who came forward were not your everyday civilians. They claimed to be part of a diplomatic security detail. One was even believed to be a high-level bodyguard for a political figure who, at the time, was visiting the United Nations. These men, referred to only as Richard and Dan in Hopkins' accounts, said they witnessed the abduction in full, and they didn't just report it. They became obsessed with Linda. One of them allegedly kidnapped her later, trying to force her to admit she staged the entire event. Linda's life from that moment forward was never the same. If this was a hoax, it was one that spiraled completely out of control. Now, let's talk about Bud Hopkins' methods. He was both respected and controversial in the UFO community. Some saw him as a tireless advocate for experiences. Others accused him of implanting memories through hypnosis. He wrote extensively about the Manhattan abduction in his book, Witnessed, which remains a cornerstone of abduction literature. But not everyone bought into his conclusions. Even his own wife, novelist Carol Rainey, began to express doubts. Years later, she accused Hopkins of cherry-picking evidence and ignoring inconsistencies in Linda's story. She said the case was more about belief than fact, and that Hopkins, while well-intentioned, may have let his passion cloud his judgment. A Netflix docuseries titled The Manhattan Alien Abduction explored this case in gripping detail, with reenactments, archival interviews, and analysis of Hopkins' files. It painted a picture of a woman caught in something she couldn't explain, and a researcher desperate to prove the world wrong. The series didn't claim to have the answers, but it left viewers with a haunting question. What if she was telling the truth? One of the most compelling elements of this story is the setting. Manhattan. We're not talking about some sleepy desert town or isolated farm. This is New York City, the place where secrets are supposed to be impossible to keep. And yet, in the heart of the urban jungle, something happened that defied explanation. In fact, Linda isn't alone in claiming urban abductions. Several other cases surfaced in the late 80s and early 90s from major cities: Chicago, Los Angeles, even London. The Napolitano case, however, is the one that shook the community the hardest. It had evidence, it had witnesses, and it had an investigator willing to bet his entire reputation on its authenticity. Still, the skeptics ask, where's the physical proof? Why no photos? Why no radar confirmations of a massive object in restricted airspace? Valid questions, and ones that Hopkins struggled to answer. But then again, if this was a military operation or something far more advanced than we can comprehend, wouldn't it make sense that they'd cover their tracks? Think about it. If the government knew this was happening, if extraterrestrial contact was real and active, would they tell us? Or would they silence it under the weight of denial and ridicule? Linda Napolitano has largely stayed out of the public eye in recent years, but her story still echoes through the UFO community. Whether you believe her or not, there's one thing we can agree on. Something happened in Manhattan that night in 1989. Something no one's been able to fully explain. And now that you know the story, it's up to you to decide. Was Linda a victim of a terrifying encounter beyond human understanding? Or was this an elaborate tale amplified by belief and coincidence? Either way, this is just the beginning, because the rabbit hole goes much deeper. Case 2. The Andrews Family Abductions, 90s. They say some nightmares never truly end, that they seep into your waking life, lingering like shadows at the edge of your vision. For the Andrews family of the United Kingdom, the 1990s marked the beginning of such a nightmare. Unlike typical stories of alien abduction, theirs was a saga stretched over years, wrapped in mystery, terror, and a strange spiritual awakening that no one could explain. This wasn't just one child's strange experience. It was a multi-layered enigma that touched every part of their lives and challenged the limits of human understanding. At the center of it all was Jason Andrews, a boy who seemed to have been chosen, though for what, no one could say. From an early age, Jason began showing unsettling physical symptoms that defied simple explanation. Tiny pinprick scars appeared on his body, small, precise marks as if from a needle, scattered in places no child would normally injure himself. Alongside these marks came sudden and frequent nosebleeds, symptoms so strange that even doctors were baffled. But these physical signs were just the surface of a far deeper and darker story. Jason told his parents he was being taken by beings unlike anything anyone had ever described. These were not the classic grey aliens of popular culture, but soldier-like creatures, tall, imposing figures who moved with a cold, purposeful precision. He described them as wearing uniforms, almost like military personnel from another world. These beings reportedly conducted tests, communicated through unspoken telepathy, and revealed glimpses of advanced alien technology far beyond human comprehension. It was as if Jason had been pulled into a secret war, one fought not with guns or bombs, but with minds and spirits. The messages Jason brought back from these abductions were perhaps the most chilling. He spoke of a unity between himself and the beings, cryptic phrases that unsettled even his parents. "I am them, and they are me," he said. Words that hinted at a merging of identities, a cosmic bond that defied explanation. Was this a form of control, a sign of possession, or something more profound? A message meant to prepare humanity for an evolution it could not yet understand. The phrase became a haunting refrain in the Andrews household, a symbol of their growing fear and confusion. Enter Tony Dodd, a UFO researcher whose involvement added a new layer of complexity to the case. Unlike many who dismiss such stories outright, Dodd took the Andrews family's account seriously. His investigations suggested that Jason might not be just a victim, but a kind of teacher, groomed by alien forces to help humanity transition into a new phase of existence. According to Dodd, these beings weren't mere kidnappers or scientists. They had a plan. Jason's experiences, scars, and messages were all pieces of a grander puzzle, one that connected human spirituality and alien technology in ways previously unimaginable. Dodd's theory was both fascinating and terrifying. He proposed that Jason was being prepared to act as a bridge between worlds, a living conduit for alien knowledge meant to reshape human consciousness. This wasn't the stuff of sci-fi movies. It was a real, ongoing drama playing out in a modest home in the UK. Dodd documented every interview, every strange mark, every odd behavior, painting a picture of a boy caught between two realities. Knowledge about alien technology and spiritual concepts that went beyond what a child could imagine or overhear. The story of the Andrews family was brought to wider attention through the book, Abducted: True Story of Alien Abduction, a gripping account that goes deep into their experiences. The book exposes the layers of pain and fear that the family endured, their desperate search for answers, and the lingering question of what happened in those quiet nights. It's a story that forces readers to confront the unknown, to question what we think is possible, and to wonder if there are forces at play in our world that we are simply not ready to face. What makes the Andrews case so compelling and terrifying is the blend of physical evidence, psychological trauma, and spiritual mystery. It's not just a tale of alien abduction. It's a story about the blurred lines between human and otherworldly, between victim and chosen one. Jason's message, "I am them and they are me," suggests a merging of identities that challenges our basic understanding of self. Could this be a glimpse into a future where humanity itself changes, shaped by extraterrestrial forces? Or is it a tragic echo of a young boy's mind under unimaginable pressure? For the Andrews family, life has never been the same. They've lived with the constant tension of unseen watchers, the fear that the abductions will continue, and the uncertainty of what these experiences mean for their son's future. Their story stands as a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest horrors aren't monsters lurking in the dark, but the invisible forces that manipulate reality itself. As you listen to their story, imagine what it would be like to live with the knowledge that you're part of something far bigger and far darker than you ever imagined. The Andrews family's abduction saga isn't just an isolated case. It's a window into a terrifying possibility that humanity might already be caught in the web of an alien agenda, one with deep spiritual and technological implications. It's a haunting mystery that refuses to fade, lingering in the shadows of our collective consciousness. So, what do you think? Was Jason truly chosen to be a teacher for humanity, or just a boy lost in the confusion of trauma? Are these soldier-like beings protectors, captors, or something else entirely? And what does it mean for us if these stories are true? The Andrews family's tale doesn't just raise questions about aliens, it forces us to confront the very nature of reality, identity, and our place in the cosmos. Remember, not all abductions come with bright lights and sudden disappearances. Some come slowly, leaving marks on the body and mind that never fully heal. The Andrews family mystery is one of those dark secrets that lurk just beneath the surface of the everyday world, waiting for those brave enough to look closer. Case 3. The Long Island Abduction. In the quiet suburbs of Long Island during the 1980s, beneath the blanket of countless starry nights, an unsettling mystery unfolded, a case that still sends chills down the spines of those who hear it. It's a story of darkness creeping into the safety of a family's home, of unexplainable paralysis, shadowy figures slipping through the edges of consciousness, and strange lights painting the night sky. This was not just one person's isolated nightmare. It was a chilling collective experience that shook a whole community and challenged the very fabric of reality. The tale begins with a woman and her young son living in an otherwise ordinary neighborhood. Like many families, they were no strangers to the occasional creak of an old house settling or the distant howl of wind through the trees. But what happened in their home one night was far from normal. Both mother and son experienced episodes that would haunt them forever. Episodes of night paralysis so intense that they were frozen in place, unable to scream or move, trapped in their own bodies, while something unseen hovered just beyond the edge of their awareness. The son, barely old enough to fully understand what he was experiencing, described encounters with what he called little people. These weren't friendly sprites or harmless imaginations. These figures were terrifying, shadowy beings, small in stature, but overwhelmingly sinister in presence. He spoke of cold eyes watching him, hands reaching out, and an overwhelming sense of dread that gripped his young heart in the dead of night. For a child, these weren't just bad dreams. They were horrifying realities intruding into his safe space. The mother's memories were equally disturbing, but blurred in fragments. She recalled waking up in her bed after a blackout, with no memory of how she had lost time. The sensation was disorienting, as if a fog had descended over her mind and erased crucial moments. She felt a lingering coldness, the unmistakable imprint of something unnatural having invaded their sanctuary. Sleep no longer felt like rest. It was a gateway to something dark and unknown. Adding an extraordinary layer to the case was the involvement of the neighbors. Multiple people in the vicinity reported witnessing a strange, luminous object hovering silently over the property that night. The descriptions were consistent. A glowing orb or disc-shaped craft emitting an eerie light that bathed the surrounding area in unnatural colors. Some neighbors even claimed to have seen silhouettes moving near the object, figures that were not human, and yet oddly purposeful in their movements. These independent testimonies elevated the case beyond a private family tragedy to something much larger, a community encounter with the inexplicable. Renowned UFO researcher Bud Hopkins later cited this incident as a textbook example of a collective alien encounter, where more than one witness validates the reality of an event. Unlike many abduction stories that hinge solely on isolated testimonies or hypnotic regressions, this case had multiple observers, each corroborating the strange happenings in and around that Long Island home. For Hopkins, this gave the story a credibility that is rare in the world of UFO lore, a haunting blend of personal trauma and undeniable external phenomena. Hopkins' analysis jumped deep into the psychological and physical aspects of the encounters. The paralysis experienced by mother and son is now understood as a common feature in many abduction narratives, often linked to a phenomenon called sleep paralysis. During these episodes, the body remains temporarily immobilized while the mind is awake, creating a terrifying blend of wakefulness and dream. But what made the Long Island case unique was the simultaneous appearance of the luminous UFO and the multiple witnesses reporting the strange craft. This overlap suggested that what happened was not a mere hallucination or isolated sleep disorder, but an event with tangible physical reality. The presence of the little people, described by the son, adds another layer of eerie complexity. In UFO and alien abduction lore, such small beings, sometimes called the Greys or other names, are frequently reported. Yet here the term little people evokes something more primal, almost folkloric, suggesting these entities straddle the line between alien technology and ancient myth. For the boy, these weren't harmless creatures. They were frightening, cold, and invasive, marking him in ways words could barely capture. Throughout the years, the Long Island family's experiences remained mostly private, shared only with close friends and a few researchers. Yet the ripple effect of their story reached far, influencing public perceptions of alien encounters in suburban America. The idea that extraterrestrial visitors could silently enter a normal home, paralyze its occupants, and be witnessed by neighbors challenged the sanitized sci-fi version of alien abduction. This was a raw, frightening reality that questioned the safety of even the most mundane places. Visually, imagine a dimly lit Long Island neighborhood, quiet except for the faint hum of night insects. Suddenly, a strange, luminous orb appears, casting an unnatural glow on manicured lawns and the sleepy faces of houses. Inside one such home, a mother and her son lie frozen, trapped in their own bodies as shadowy forms move silently through their bedroom, unseen but deeply felt. The night sky holds its secrets, but the terror on Earth is all too real. The Long Island case also opens the door to deeper questions about the nature of these abductions. Why target a child and his mother? What purpose could these paralyzing visitations serve? Are these little people observers, abductors, or something else entirely? And how does the community's shared witnessing of the event change the narrative? Unlike isolated accounts dismissed as hallucinations, this collective experience forces us to confront the possibility that something larger is at play, weaving itself into the fabric of everyday life. These three chilling stories, Manhattan's floating abduction, the Andrews family's generational mystery, and the Long Island night of paralysis and shadowy visitors, force us to ask, how much of this hidden world are we truly ready to face? Are these isolated incidents, or pieces of a larger puzzle government agencies have long kept under wraps. With the recent surge of official UAP hearings and leaked documents, the veil is lifting, but only slightly. What else remains concealed in the shadows? Are we being prepped for disclosure or misled into deeper confusion? One thing is clear. These cases aren't just old tales. They resonate in today's growing wave of unexplained encounters. What do you think lies beyond? Are these experiences warnings or invitations? Let us know your theories. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and drop a comment below telling us which case shook you the most. Trust me, the truth is just getting darker.